Jang fixed the girl with a penetrating gaze, contemplating his next move. As he stood there, the air around him began to shimmer with Little Nine's toxic mist, and a swarm of menacing insects gathered at his back, their attention locked on her, poised to strike. He stepped closer, his eyes dropping to the ground, and in a chilling voice, demanded she provide a compelling reason for him to spare her life. Seeing the menacing mist and insects, she was seized with panic. She dropped to her knees, her hands trembling as she produced a small pouch of gold coins. Bowing her head, she pleaded, "This is everything I have. It's worth millions, my entire life savings. Take it, just spare me." Jiang picked up a coin, its weight cold in his hand. He eyed her closely, noting the genuine fear and desperation in her voice. For a moment, he considered her offer, sensing a hint of sincerity in her plea. Despite her apparent sincerity, Jiang was wary. She knew too much and had a history of deceit. He concluded that she posed too great a risk to leave alive. As she sensed his resolve, she rose to her feet, eyes closed in a desperate act of faith. With one hand raised skyward, she solemnly swore by the name Luo Sandao that if she had lied, she would accept the heaven's wrath in the form of 5 thunderbolts. Jiang hesitated, puzzled by her declaration. He couldn't be sure if Luo Sandao was indeed her true name or another fabrication, given her propensity for lying without regard for the truth. Luo Sandao stepped forward, offering her identification card with a steady hand. Her eyes held a sincere, unwavering gaze as she spoke. "What I'm telling you is the truth. I can't explain why my parents chose this name for me, but I swear, I'm not deceiving you." She paused, then added, "If you still have doubts, my ID card will confirm it." Jiang accepted her identification card, bringing it closer for inspection. The photo depicted a round-faced girl, markedly different from the woman before him. Puzzled, he questioned Luo Sandao, "Are you sure this is you?" In response, she grasped a few strands of her hair, mimicking the appearance of twin ponytails. Closing her eyes and puffing out her cheeks, she explained with a hint of embarrassment, "This was taken 2 years ago. I hadn't grown up yet and hadn't lost the weight." Seeing the comical earnestness in her expression, Jiang couldn't help but turn away, bursting into laughter. His outburst left the insects hovering behind him visibly puzzled. Regaining his composure, he fixed her with a piercing stare and said, "I still can't trust you. This secret you're trying to protect, it's a burden only the dead can carry." Before Jiang could finish his sentence, she sprang into action. Activating her storage ring, she conjured a shimmering portal. With one hand reaching into its depths, she retrieved a scroll and advanced toward him. Her expression turned serious as she said, "Don't worry about this." Jiang, taken aback, stared at the scroll in astonishment and asked, "What is that?" With both hands, she unfurled the scroll, her movements deliberate and steady. "This is a sealing scroll," she explained to Jiang, her voice edged with a mix of fear and resolve. "Once I reveal your secret, it will execute me instantly. I'm terrified of dying, which is why I brought this out." As she spoke, a system window materialized in front of Jiang, indicating that she had sworn to safeguard his secret at the cost of her own life. If she revealed this secret, she would be executed, she reiterated, her voice trembling. Jiang was taken aback, struggling to comprehend that such a thing existed in the world. After a few moments of stunned silence, he cautiously took the scroll from her hands. Squinting with one eye as he examined it closely with the other, he finally nodded in acceptance. With the confidentiality scroll binding her to secrecy, Jiang decided to spare her life, at least for the time being. Grateful, she expressed her thanks. Curiosity piqued, he turned to her and inquired about the scroll's cost. She touched her finger to her cheek, thoughtfully considering his question, and then replied, "It's worth about 10 million. Jiang clenched the scroll tightly and advanced towards her, his expression darkening with the realization that she had just exhausted the only valuable item in her storage ring. Seeing her trembling hands, she panicked and suggested, "If you come with me to my home, my parents will treat you well and reward you generously." Jiang turned away from her, beginning to walk, and stated that he had to report to the night watch early the next morning, so he couldn't delay any longer. After bidding her good luck, he started to move away. As she watched him retreat, she called out to him, catching his attention. She requested that he accompany her home, since her house was much closer than the night watch headquarters. Near her house, there was a teleportation station, and she assured him that he would arrive on time if he accompanied her. Initially hesitant, Jang eventually agreed, and several hours later, they arrived at the Grand Luo family mansion. The estate was stunningly vast and opulent, resembling a castle in its grandeur. Inside, a group of hooded figures knelt before a woman seated upon a throne, the center of attention in the mansion. A man approached her and delivered the news about her daughter. Shocked by the revelation, she struggled to comprehend how such a thing could have happened. The Xiao family's actions of theft, murder, and now deceit had pushed her tolerance to its limit. Seeing her fury, the man implored her to direct her anger away from him, acknowledging his role in causing her pain and suffering. A few minutes later, Luo Sandao entered the room and quietly moved to her mother's side. She sat down, laying her head on her mother's lap, tears streaming down her face. Her mother comforted her with a gentle touch before turning her furious gaze towards her subordinates. In that moment, she resolved decisively to take action against the Xiao family. Her husband approached her, his gaze steady and reassuring. He gently gestured with his hands, speaking in a serious tone, urging her to calm herself. He emphasized that the priority was Luo Sandao's safe return. He reminded her of the Xiao family's influence as a powerful entity in the country, cautioning that their family, as mere merchants, couldn't afford to provoke them. Jiang observed silently, pondering that her true name must be Luo Sandao. Her father turned towards Jiang, offering him a black card. With a grateful smile and closed eyes, he thanked Jiang for rescuing their daughter, urging him to keep the black card. Beside him, the mother turned her head, eyes closed in a serene expression, and warmly acknowledged Jiang as their benefactor. She had prepared a meal for him, intending for him to eat in peace before using their efficient teleportation system. Jiang accepted the black card gratefully, closing his eyes as he expressed his intention not to eat. However, just then, his stomach rumbled loudly. Blushing slightly, he chuckled, scratching the back of his head sheepishly, and reluctantly decided to partake in a small portion of the meal. Seeing Jiang's hunger, her father gestured to where the food was laid out, prompting immediate organization. Meanwhile, her mother placed a hand near her face, closed her eyes, and smiled contentedly. The finest chefs of the Luo family swiftly prepared a feast. Within minutes, Jiang savored several dishes, stacking them into a tower as he enjoyed the meal. As a waiter approached with another dish, he appeared puzzled and somewhat surprised. Jiang sat with one hand on the table, the other holding a piece of meat, contemplating how his growing appetite seemed to coincide with the increasing number of insects around him. Next to him sat Luo Sandao, who turned to Jiang with a smile, advising him to take his time and enjoy his meal. Beside her, her parents sat, closing their eyes and wearing joyful smiles as they silently observed Jiang. As Jiang continued to eat heartily, Luo Sandao couldn't help but blush and feel pleasantly surprised watching him. Sipping her tea, the mother conveyed to her father what their daughter had mentioned, that Jiang belonged to the creation class and possessed a divine rank. Perplexed, she couldn't fathom how he managed to rescue their daughter from the Xiao family. Her father, deep in thought, rested his hand under his chin as he contemplated Jiang. She explained to her husband that despite their daughter's reluctance to admit it, she was certain Jiang possessed hidden abilities and was more capable than he appeared. She also noted his handsome appearance. They exchanged a knowing glance and smiled, both silently considering that if Jiang could aid them in their struggle against the Xiao family and protect their daughter indefinitely, he would be an ideal ally. With a warm smile, her father asked Jiang if he had a girlfriend. Her mother also mentioned that in their family, Sandao was currently single. She hinted at Sandao's proficiency in a hidden profession. Aside from excelling in business, she was skilled in financial management. Her father stood nearby, giving Jiang a thumbs up as he complimented Sandao's attractive physique, noting her measurements of 36, 24 to 36. He also suggested that they would make a perfect couple and even mentioned names he had thought of for their future children. Jang, who was taking a sip of water, set the glass down abruptly, nearly spitting out the water in shock. Hearing her parents' suggestion, she blushed deeply, feeling bewildered by what was unfolding. Without hesitation, Jiang quickly excused himself, expressing gratitude for their hospitality. He mentioned feeling full and having urgent matters to attend to. Observing this, her father requested him to wait a bit longer, as they had something important to discuss with him. Sandao intervened, approaching her father and placing a hand over his mouth, urging him to remain silent. Her mother turned to Sandao with a disappointed expression and took a seat. Sandao's father approached and informed her that Jiang had departed, suggesting she bid him farewell as her husband. Sandao's mother reassured her, noting that her father knew the location of the black card, so there was no need to worry. She was startled by the revelation that they intended to follow him wherever he went. Gripping her knees tightly, she closed her eyes and let out a scream, pleading with them to stop talking. As she looked down, her mind raced with thoughts of Jiang. She couldn't deny his handsome and strong appearance, yet she found him equally intimidating. Despite his fearsome demeanor, she couldn't deny his undeniable charm and strength. Meanwhile, in the Xiao family, Xiao Yuanshan, the patriarch, received the devastating news of his grandson's death. Enraged, he ordered his subordinates to conduct a thorough investigation into the murder, determined to find the perpetrator. The identity of the culprit remained a mystery to him. He instructed his other grandson to promptly dispatch someone to investigate the matter. As a subordinate knelt before him, Xiao Beihan, with one hand casually in his pants pocket, approached his grandfather. Gesturing with his free hand, he voiced his disappointment, stating that his cousin, despite being over 20 years old, had only reached level 30 of the second transformation and thus deemed useless. After expressing his thoughts, Xiao Beihan questioned the significance of mourning the death of someone he deemed useless, suggesting to his grandfather that it wasn't worth becoming so enraged over. Xiao Yuanshan, seated with both hands on his knees, fixed his gaze on Xiao Beihan and remarked that his cousin was indeed mediocre, pale in comparison to him. Thus, he considered it no loss that his cousin was dead. Xiao Beihan further asserted that, after all, his cousin was still his grandfather's grandson. Even to strike a dog, one had to consider its owner. He expressed curiosity about who in the country would dare to kill a member of the Xiao family. Upon hearing this, Xiao Beihan smiled, extending his hand forward as a malevolent energy began to radiate from it. He reassured his grandfather not to concern himself with such trivial matters. Once the Tianjiao camp issue was resolved, regardless of guilt, he pledged to handle it on his behalf. Meanwhile, Jiang arrived at the Night Watch office. He opened the door and entered, where he found the Night Watch leader and several others gathered. Jiang turned to his side in mild surprise upon seeing Jiang's arrival. Walking over, he scratched the back of his head and introduced himself as Jiang Chen, the new member of the Night Watch. Jiang couldn't help but notice the crowd gathered and wondered about their presence. Jiang approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder, closing his eyes, and with a smile, informed him that they had been anticipating his arrival. Upon hearing this, Jiang was surprised. Jiang proceeded to introduce him to the key new members of their group. The first was Yun Xiaoke, a level 45 healer in the second stage. Formerly the youngest, Jiang had now usurped that position from her. Blushing slightly, she covered her mouth, gazing at Jiang and thinking to herself how handsome he was. She had never collaborated with someone so striking before. The second member introduced was Duan Feng, a level 49 archer also in the second stage. Though not very talkative, he exuded a sense of confidence. He rested a hand on his hip and lifted the other near his forehead, greeting Jiang with a smile and expressing his pleasure at meeting him. The third member introduced was Chu Bulang, a level 49 warrior known for his compact frame, yet formidable strength and eloquence. Stepping forward to Jiang, he stood squarely in front of him, closed his eyes briefly, and grinned as he remarked that having a professional member of divine level was an achievement worth boasting about for a lifetime. The fourth member introduced herself as Tang Jin, a master in the third stage, level 61, specializing in the fire class and holding the rank of sub-commander. Approaching them, she placed her hands on Chu Bulung's and Jiang's heads, gently caressing them, and with a warm smile, requested that they address her as Aunt Tang from now on. She assured them they would have meat every day. Jang introduced himself with a humble smile as an awakened from the creation class. He wondered aloud how he could warrant such enthusiasm from them. Deep down, he knew that despite its clarity and divine level, the creation class of spiritual mastery was often undervalued by others. Jiang casually slipped one hand into his pocket and gestured with the other, asserting that there was nothing wrong with being a divine-level spiritual master in the creation class. He advised not to heed the words of ignorant critics who spoke nonsense. The team all trusted him. Tang Jin placed her hands on her hips, turned towards him, and smiled warmly, remarking that he was special for choosing to be among them. The Night Watch would be his new home from now on. Ji Gang walked up to him, placed a hand on his shoulder, and got straight to the point. Gesturing to one side and wearing a serious expression, he explained that to enroll in the Tianjiao training camp, he needed to be at least level 20. He wasn't sure about Jiang's current level. Jiang, with a calm demeanor, revealed that he was now at level 17. This news left him somewhat surprised, considering Jiang had changed jobs just 3 days ago. Grabbing Jiang by the shoulders, he closed his eyes and laughed out loud, thinking he had definitely made the right choice in selecting him. He believed that Jiang possessed true divine talent, making it feasible for him to advance 3 levels in 3 days. Without hesitation, he decided to enroll Jiang in the Tianjiao Genius Camp immediately. Ji Gang opened his eyes, turned his head, and noticed everyone else watching him with serious expressions. He put his hand in his pocket, turned to Jiang, and with a serious expression, asked if he had encountered any trouble with someone dangerous in the past 3 days. An unknown third-grade master was using their divine class to investigate Jiang's whereabouts. Glancing down at the ground, he couldn't help but wonder if a member of the Xiao family might be behind this.